Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's Ukrainian show on POTV. My name is Sasha Star, and today's guests are Dr. Jonathan Lockwood. Welcome to the show, Jonathan.
Thank you, Sasha. Glad to be here as always.
Of course. And our man in Kyiv, Ivan Kucherenko. Welcome to the show, Ivan.
Hello, Sasha. Hello, Jonathan. Glad to be here today.
Okay, let's start with the videos that you mentioned.
Yeah, sure. Let's start.
Okay.
Mark, please start the video.
We're waiting for the kickoff.
Figures in State Duma in Russia has compared the current economic situation to 1917 to the Russian Revolution. How significant is that development?
There is a real crisis going on in Russia, and there has been for a long time. Russia now looks truly like a weak, middling power. The previous U.S. administration was saying, you can't do anything to Putin because he's so volatile, he'll start a nuclear war. And here we are now with the Ukrainians blowing up Russia's oil export infrastructure and blowing it up in a way that they can't defend themselves against. And that is their lifeblood. The economy is not that big. It's about the size of Italy. Are we obsessing? Is the world obsessing about the Italians? No. Russia's military is a complete disgrace. As we've seen, they can't even make a few kilometers advance now in Ukraine, a country 1/10 the size. And so it's no longer a superpower. And of course, Putin no longer can project all this power around the world. He lost Bashar al-Assad in Syria. He lost Maduro in Venezuela. He lost the elder Khamenei in Iran, and nothing he could do about any of that. The one thing that could really put him on the back foot in a terrible way is what the Ukrainians are doing to his oil industry. And if they continue to do that, that will be his downfall. If he doesn't have the oil industry exporting oil, he doesn't have money. If he doesn't have money, then he can't do any of the stuff that he's been doing for a long time.
So do you see a genuine turning point?
The one thing that I think really hits them where it hurts, their Achilles heel, are these strikes on the oil export capacity. And if they continue that, double down, triple down, that could be a total game changer for Ukraine.
Well, let's
quickly watch another one. It's really short.
Okay.
Without music, unfortunately, but the picture is quite inspiring.
Well, that pretty much sums up the the current state of disaster in Russia. That's very well done.
Today, Ukrainian forces attacked Russian Tuapse for the third time already. Russians just managed to take away fire after the previous two attacks, and today it was hit for the third time. And that time the fire is spreading even faster, and there is already emergency situation in Tuapse with evacuation for part of the city. So Russians are just getting back what they brought to Ukraine, and it's some kind of karma. They hope that it will speed a little bit the upcoming crisis and the end of that third Russian Empire, actually, what is currently is Russian Federation looks like. The first Russian Empire was the Tsar Empire, which was fallen after the revolution of 1917. The second Russian Empire was actually Soviet Union, and now Russian Federation is the third Russian Empire, which one way I hope in near future will fall down, and we will gather here together with Sasha, with you, Jonathan, and discuss
Well, ironically, we'll all have a
great
glass of
news.
vodka.
Yeah.
We'll have either vodka or whatever the Ukrainians' favorite beverage of choice is.
Gorilka.
Say what? What is it?
Gorilka. It's Ukrainian vodka.
Is
okay.
Ivan, is Pertsovka also Ukrainian vodka?
Yeah, sure. It's Ukrainian, like borscht. It's actually a Ukrainian dish which was stolen by Russia, and Russia used the borscht as their own invention, cooking invention actually. But it's traditionally a Ukrainian dish. But it's a real nice etymology of the word gorilka in Ukrainian. I've recently discovered because it's gorilka in Ukrainian. It's from a despair, hora, the drink which actually helps you in a state of despair, and for Russian vodka, there is no etymology at all. Actually, it's not explained. It's some kind of a word from probably Mongolian.
It's a constant despair, never-ending despair. That's
Yeah.
what is Russian vodka.
The closest thing to hell on earth.
Yeah. So in the last couple of days, we had a visit of Iranian Foreign Minister Arakchi to Putin, and Putin had a red carpet with him, and he was talking big stuff, what great friends they are, and so on. But this is, first of all, Arakchi on a rank, whereas the president of Russia, Arakchi, is not number 2, number 3, not even number 4 or 5 in Iranian hierarchy. He's like maybe number 11 or something. So
They're running out of hierarchies.
But what's the logic of Putin? What he was trying to posture to United States that, look, I'm expecting great people from Iran. They're my friends, and I'm with them, or so on. It's a bizarre. Same as the U.S. approach to Iran. Well, now that Donald Trump was with another assassination attempt on Saturday, I think it was. So anyway, life goes on. So now the United States has to make I think there was talk about some kind of an offer from Iran, just came out recently, that they say, okay, we open Strait of Hormuz, we open your part of blockade, and we go on like nothing happened, and so on. I don't think that. I'm not sure if that such offer exists ever, and if it did, it's absolutely meaningless. What's happened with the Iranian enriched uranium, the nuclear program of Iran, and so on, that's not addressed, at least what I've heard. So, Jonathan, what do you think about this?
As far as that offer goes, so long as the Iranians refuse to make any concessions regarding their nuclear program or anything else, then President Trump sees no point in making any concessions or making any offers. He's keeping up the blockade, and they're keeping up. They're going to keep up the economic pressure on Iran until Iran concedes. Right now, it's a waiting game. It's a test of political wills and a test of economic pressure against Iran's weakest point. Much the same as the Ukrainians are applying pressure, steady, constant pressure against Russia's weakest point, their oil industry. And in a parallel sense, the U.S. is applying the same kind of economic pressure with its blockade against Iran's weakest point. So right now is just you are seeing a three-way contest of political wills. And interestingly enough, all have to do at this point is simply be patient and not overreach, and just simply allow the economic pressure to have its effect. In the case of Russia, analogy, I like to use this boxing analogy, in that right now Russians and Ukrainians are boxers. Right now, the Russians are out on their feet. They have run out of energy. They can no longer defend themselves. It's like a boxer whose arms are so tired he can no longer hold them up in front of himself to defend himself. He's just vulnerable to a knockout punch. And I'm waiting for the Ukrainians to deliver the final knockout punch.
Yeah. Ivan, how is people in Kiev, like when you're talking about what people are saying about the situation?
Actually, people here are a little bit upset because of oil prices are going up, and the gas is also, prices on gas are increasing. So it definitely will lead to more inflation rates, and because the prices on the goods will increase as well. But anyway, people here more involved with Russia than in economy, and it's good that we've passed that winter. It was really hard, and now, despite the continuous Russian attacks over Ukraine, we mostly has no problems with the electricity. Very recent blackouts. It shows that Ukrainian air defense systems are doing pretty great job with shooting down the Russian Iranian drones, Shahed drones. The percentage of successful interceptions of Shahed drones is like around 90%. Unfortunately, the ballistic missiles is really a big problem for Ukraine. Russia continues to strike Ukraine with ballistic missiles, and due to the shortages of Patriot system interceptors, not every Russian ballistic missile is shot down. But Ukraine actually is working on our own ballistic missiles defense program, and I hope that until the end of this year we'll be able to shoot down ballistic missiles as well. And also Ukraine is working on our own ballistic missiles to strike Russia back with them. And it was one of the reasons why the traditional Victory Date parade in Moscow, which is their major holiday when they celebrate their victory in not in the Second World War, but in the great patriotic war, how they've called it, in order to take only that part of that war when Russia and Germany were not allies but enemies, because the first part of the Second World War was the part when Soviet Union and Nazi Germany were actually allies, and they invaded Poland and Baltic states together. So the Russia canceled all major activities during that victory parade. There will be no battle techniques, no heavy arms in this parade, and no tanks, traditional, no missile systems like they were every year on the Russian Red Square, when they've shown to the whole world that look on our tanks, look on our artillery systems, or look on our ballistic missiles, we are dangerous. Now they will not show them on the parade, and there would be only troops marching the parade, because only one reason: they're afraid of Ukrainian ballistic missile and drone attacks on Moscow during those days. They're aware that Ukraine is preparing to strike Moscow, I hope, and I hope that it would be a successful strike. But anyway, those successful strikes of Russian oil infrastructure, of Russian military facilities, which we see every day. They're inspiring Ukrainian people, and they show that Ukrainian army is doing a great job, and also Russia is not able to advance on the battlefield. Now they're actually have more soldiers being killed than the number of soldiers they're able to recruit. This is a continuous trend for several months of this year, and that's why Russia is going to announce some kind of mobilization in order to recruit more soldiers, not on contract basis like they are now recruiting by paying them some great amounts of money, but to conscript them actually, not to pay them at all. But probably it will increase the economical collapse of Russia, because the situation inside it is like in the kettle full of water, which is on fire, and the water here is boiling, but the kettle is tight completely, and it can just blow any moment. So we hope here that it will blow very soon.
Mm-hmm. All of this reminds me, I believe I told the two of you this one before, about that back when I was working as a Soviet threat instructor out when I was an intelligence officer. And we had a poster in our office that had been made up. We had a made-up poster that we suggested, thinking the Soviet Union could use this as a tourism poster. And the poster shows a whole row of tanks rolling down Red Square with the caption, "The Soviet Union. Visit us before we visit you."
Yeah.
But there is a real threat that in order to break the NATO, to continue the job which was started by President Trump, they break the unity of the alliance, that Putin will dare to invade one of the Baltic states, for instance, Estonia. He actually needs a very few number of troops. Russia has such number, and he will try to capture some part of Estonian territory in order to check the reaction of NATO, and whether the United States will go and support NATO, whether the NATO will declare a war to Russia upon this invasion, whether the NATO will just accept this act from Russia as act of war, because obviously it would be their hybrid kind of aggression. There will be no Russian flags and no Russian marks on the soldiers and on the vehicles which will be used in this kind of operation. And there will be some kind of unknown drones flying over Estonia, and Russia, as we've seen in Crimea, actually Russia will say, no, it's some kind of green man here. It's recruits from Estonia who really want to be independent for Estonia, to make independent city of Narva, to make some kind of Narva People Republic, the same thing like they did in the eastern parts of Ukraine, in Luhansk and Donetsk, when they occupied them. But there were no direct Russian forces until the time when Ukrainian forces were really successful in getting back occupied territories, and then Russia invaded actually Ukraine in 2014. So it's a real threat, and a lot of European officials are talking that Russia planned that kind of invasion for the next year, for 2027, but because of the critical situation inside the Russia, they probably can try such act within upcoming several months, in order to while the United States are busy with Iran and they don't have possibility to use all their military power and their political focus to come and help small European country Estonia on the eastern border of NATO. So it will be a really great check for the NATO to prove the integrity and the unity of the alliance.
I agree, and I think the proper NATO response, if Russia should attempt something like that, would be something along the lines of a Scottish saying: "Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me." So I think they're going to call them out. That would be to me an invasion of Estonia under whatever means would be the last desperate throw of the dice for Putin in an different attempt to try to snatch some sort of victory from the jaws of an imminent defeat versus Ukraine.
Absolutely. And don't forget that but Estonia, all Baltic countries, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, they're all getting ready for Russian invasion. They are training their troops, they're training their civilians, and they have all kind of measures. And also there are some troops from Europe, like Germany. They are stationed on territory of Baltic states. So I think when you judge from the territorial point of view, from number of people living there, it should be so easy prey on Russians just to go there, and in 2 days, in 3 days, you will have this country and the other country and all countries and so on. But it's just a talk. In reality, it's going to be extremely difficult and most likely losing proposition.
And as we all remember, Russia obviously thought they had an easy victory back in 2022. They thought it was only going to take a few days, and that basically the Ukrainians would collapse like a house of cards. And for the Russians, it turned out to be a major miscalculation. It would be a similar miscalculation for them to attempt to invade the Baltic states, and they are probably, in all likelihood, will encounter much, much greater resistance than they expect. Pretty much the way back in the Winter War between the Soviet Union and Finland, when they ended the Winter War, and Stalin thought that he was going to get relatively easy concessions of territory around Leningrad to give further protection for Leningrad, and instead the Finns managed to inflict 200,000 casualties, 200,000 Russian troops dead as a result, before Stalin was finally forced to commit much greater forces and eventually force the Finns into an armistice. But the Finns preserved their independence. They were not going to completely take over Finland. And it should have taught the Russians a major lesson. But unfortunately, they did not. They did not learn from history, and they had to suffer the results of the invasion of Nazi Germany, which, by the way, Stalin did not believe until even when the invasion occurred. He did not believe that his best friend Hitler was going to invade and break up their pact, and so. No,
John, it's almost like from the Bible that the brother Hitler attacked brother Stalin.
Yep. Yeah, but we're brothers. Yeah. So were Cain and Abel.
Exactly, that's what I was thinking about.
Yeah. So Cain slew his brother Abel because Cain and Abel both offered sacrifices to the Lord, and in this case, the Lord found Abel's sacrifice acceptable, and He did not find Cain's sacrifice acceptable. And Cain, out of jealousy, allowed thoughts of murder to enter his mind, and the Lord warned him against it, that sin was crouching at his door, but he did not heed it, and he became, if you look at it in biblical terms, the world's first murderer. So,
yeah,
There is that. And apparently, the Russian leadership has learned absolutely nothing either from the Bible or from history. So we are seeing a very sad situation, but it is a situation that the Russian leadership and particularly Putin has brought upon themselves.
I think the only Russian hope is Professor Dugin, because he is very knowledgeable in history and in religion, and he knows all European languages. And he is one that Putin is listening to. So Dugin has to come up with some solution for Russia. If it's not him, then who else? Yeah, that's a tragic situation of Russia. So the world is not a happy place these days.
When has it ever been a happy place?
Uh,
There have every age, Sasha. If you look back across the recorded human history, every age has had its problems, which the people living at that time saying, "How much worse can it get?" And if they knew, if they could be shown a prophecy of the future, they said, "Oh, it can get that bad, can it?" Okay, yeah, we withdraw our statement about how bad life is because it can always.
There was a great joy on May 8th, 1945.
That's true.
That was the end of Second World War. That was the greatest joy in all countries. I think people got so excited about that. So maybe that was one of the brightest days in the last several hundred years.
Well, even in America, especially because even during the Second World War, once Hitler invaded the Soviet Union, there was a great outpouring of good feeling among Americans for Russians. Why? Because you essentially were saying, at last, the Russians are fighting on our side because we were united against Nazi Germany.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. It was great time, and look at how many years of prosperity West had after 1945 until Trump got into the presidency of the United States.
Well, the problem was building quite. Actually, if you wanted to trace it to a point of where the prosperity started to dissolve, it was when you could trace it arguably to when President Nixon went off of the gold standard, and U.S. currency was no longer tied to gold and silver, but it was based on fiat currency, upon the faith and credit of the United States government to repay its debts. Unfortunately, say again?
It didn't hurt the United States when that happened.
It didn't hurt the United States, but unfortunately, they allowed their greed, because essentially that created a national credit card for the United States to spend as much as it wanted to just by printing its own currency. It's a national credit card with no credit limit, with no repayment period, and just simply no restraints whatsoever. And we see the result. It is something which both the Democratic and Republican administrations both took full advantage of it. And it only accelerated as it became. Now we're in a position where only a really drastic solution, which I will probably put forward in another forum because that would take us too far off topic here. Basically, the more the national debt accelerates, the harder you will have to slam on the brakes in order to keep total collapse from occurring. So, and that, although that is a pessimistic warning, there is still, I assert that it is still time to correct it. The only question is, will the United States political leadership have the will to implement that kind of solution? But in the meantime, our other adversaries are suffering their own kind of catastrophic failures. The Chinese have their own intractable problems. So do the North Koreans. So do the Iranians. Certainly the Iranians do. And right now, one of the few nations that actually has interestingly enough, one of the few nations that is not necessarily facing an apocalyptic crisis is Ukraine. In the short term, at least in the intermediate term, Ukraine is having a potential victory against Russia, and they have the potential, once they're people who have fled the country initially, they come back to Ukraine and take advantage of their greatly improved position. I foresee a very bright future, at least intermediate term, I would say for the remainder of the 21st century for Ukraine to achieve a power, not necessarily superpower status, but certainly be a near great power status. And it would be something that the Ukrainians, I think they could get used to that.
Yeah. Okay, gentlemen, I would like to thank you very much for today's program, and Slava Ukraini, and glory to the United States, Canada, and very friendly countries. There are still few, but there are. And we'll see you next time. By the way, on this coming Friday, I would like to take off, so we will repeat today's program for some medical appointment to attend. And we'll see all of you together on Tuesday next week.
Excellent.
Okay?
Excellent.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye.